This is lesson 4.1, Graphing Equations in Slope-Intercept Form. Your objectives are to write and graph linear equations in slope-intercept form and to model real-world data with equations in slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form is the equation y equals mx plus b, where m is the given slope and b is the y-intercept. This is a linear equation. M is the slope of the line, and b is the y-intercept of the line. Write an equation of a line in slope-intercept form with the given slope and y-intercept. Number 1. The slope is 8 and the y-intercept is negative 3. Well, slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. M is the slope, so substitute 8 for the slope, and b is the y-intercept, so substitute negative 3 in for b. And then simplify that. Instead of saying y equals 8x plus negative 3, change it to y equals 8x minus 3. Don't leave it to where it says something plus a negative. Change that. Substitute in for the slope and for the y-intercept. Number 2. The slope is negative 2 and the y-intercept is negative 1. Well, use the equation y equals mx plus b for slope-intercept form. M is the slope, so substitute in negative 2 for m. The y-intercept is b, so substitute negative 1 in for b. Y equals negative 2x plus negative 1. Then simplify that. Instead of saying plus a negative 1, just change that to minus 1. Y equals negative 2x minus 1. Substitute in for the slope and the y-intercept and simplify if necessary. Number 3. The slope is negative 1 and the y-intercept is negative 7. Well, in y equals mx plus b, m is the slope, so substitute negative 1 in for m. The y-intercept is b, so substitute negative 7 in for b. And then simplify. Instead of saying negative 1x, just say negative x. And instead of saying plus a negative 7, just say minus 7. Always simplify things if necessary. Write an equation in slope-intercept form for each graph shown. Number 4. To get slope-intercept form, we need to find the slope and the y-intercept. Find the slope first. In a graph, it's easiest to find the slope by doing rise over run. So pick 2 points that we know. Well, we know the 2 points that they give us. So let's do rise over run with those points. From left to right, we rise up 2, so that's a positive 2. We run 1 to the right, so that's a positive 1. So the slope is 2. The y-intercept is where the line crosses the y-axis, and that happens at negative 2. So b is negative 2. Now when you substitute into slope-intercept form, m is 2, and b is negative 2. Simplify that. Y equals 2x minus 2. Remember, don't say something plus a negative. Instead, just say minus the number. Find the slope first with rise over run, find the y-intercept, and substitute in. Number 5. Slope-intercept form of this line, we need m and b. Find the slope first. In the graph, pick 2 points and rise over run between them. So between these 2 points that they give us, from left to right, the rise goes down 3, so it's -3. The run goes 3 to the right of a +3. -3 divided by 3 is -1. So the slope is -1. The y-intercept is where the line crosses the y-axis, and that happens at 3. So b is 3. Substitute into the formula now. Y equals m is -1, x plus b is 3. And simplify if possible. Don't say -1x. Instead, say -x. So y equals -x plus 3. Rise over run to find the slope. Look at the graph to find the y-intercept, and substitute into the formula. Number 6. In this graph, find slope-intercept form. So we need the slope and the y-intercept. To find the slope, rise over run. Use the 2 points that they give you. From left to right, the rise goes up 3, so it's +3. The run goes 4 to the right, so that's a +4. So the slope is 3/4. For the y-intercept, this line crosses the y-axis at -5, so b is -5. Now substitute into the formula. Y equals m is 3/4, x plus b is -5. And simplify. Y equals 3/4 x minus 5. Do rise over run to find the slope, find the y-intercept, substitute in, and simplify. Graph each equation. Number 7. Y equals 2x plus 1. To graph this, we need it to be in slope-intercept form. And if you look at the way that's written, it is in the form y equals mx plus b. To graph, follow these steps. First, plot a point. You always need a starting point when you graph. With slope-intercept form, the starting point will be the y-intercept. After that, use the slope to find the next point. So from the first point, rise over run with the slope to get the next point. Y equals 2x plus 1. Our starting point will be the y-intercept, which is 1. So put a point on the y-axis at 1. Then use the slope to find the next point. The slope is 2, and if it's an integer, just put it over 1 to make it a fraction, and we'll use that to rise over run to the next point. 2 is the rise, and 1 is the run. So from the y-intercept, we'll rise 2, and that goes up 2, and we'll run 1, and that'll go to the right 1. Put another point where that ends, and then connect those dots. Put arrows on each end of the line, and you're done. Start at a point like the y-intercept, use the slope and rise over run to the next point, and then connect the dots. Number 8. Y equals -3x plus 2. This is already solved for y, so it is in slope-intercept form. If it wasn't in slope-intercept form, then we would solve the equation for y to put it in slope-intercept form. This one's already there. You can see based on where the numbers are that m is -3 and b is 2. To graph, start with the y-intercept. b is 2. So put a point at 2 on the y-axis. Use the slope to find the next point. The slope is -3. You can make it a fraction and say it's -3 over 1, and that way we can rise over run. The rise is -3, so we'll go down 3, and the run is 1, so we'll go 1 to the right. Put another point, and connect the dots. Start at the y-intercept, put a point. From that point, use the slope and rise over run to the next point, and connect the dots. Number 9. Y equals -x minus 1. This is already in slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. To graph, start with the y-intercept. b is -1. So put a point at -1 on the y-axis. Then use the slope to find the next point. The equation says -x, which we know is really -1x, so the slope is -1. To make it a fraction, put it over 1, and we'll use that to rise over run. The rise is -1, so we'll go down 1. The run is 1, so we'll go 1 to the right. Put a point, and draw the line through those points. Start at the y-intercept, use the slope to rise over run to the next point, and draw the line through those points. When modeling real-world data with slope-intercept form, you need to know what the numbers and variables in the question do in the formula. Where does each item go? Y equals mx plus b. The piece that goes in for y, that'll be the total amount. It's usually what you're looking for, and that's a variable. M is a number that repeats. It'll be a number and it applies to x. M and x are related closely. The repeating number is m. X is the repeating variable, so whatever variable repeats, that goes where x is. And b is the one-time starting amount. Whatever number you start with, that number goes in for b. So pick every item out of the question and put it in the right place in slope-intercept form. Number 1. In 2001, full-length cassettes represented 3.4% of total music sales. Between 2001 and 2006, the percent decreased by about 0.5% per year. Write an equation to find the percent P of recorded music sold as full-length cassettes for any year X between 2001 and 2006. Well, this is going to be using slope-intercept form. Let's start by identifying each variable and number. Y is the total amount, and that's a variable. In this question, the total amount is what we're finding, and that's P. So P goes where Y is. M is the repeating number. Which number occurs over and over again? Well, since this decreases by 0.5% per year, each year you go down 0.5%. That's a repeating number. And since it's decreasing, it'll be negative 0.5. X is the variable that repeats, and it works together with M. Well, the repeating variable is the year X. You've got several years, 2001 through 2006. That's the repeating variable. Plus B, that's usually the starting point. It's the number that occurs one time. The number that fits that is your 3.4%. That's where you start. That's the number that occurs once. That's B. So look for all of the variables and numbers. The total variable is y, the repeating number is m, the repeating variable is x, and the number that occurs once, which is usually the starting point, is b. B. Graph the equation on the grid at the right. To graph this, we need a starting point, and that's the y-intercept. B is 3.4. So we'll put a point at 3.4 on the y-axis. Then from there we'll use the slope to find the next point. The slope is negative 0.5. We can put that over 1 and rise over run. So we'll rise negative 0.5, which goes down 0.5, run 1. Then draw the line through those points. Remember, when the slope is negative, you rise down. C. Find the percent of recorded music sold as full-length cassettes in 2004. Well, the years since 2001 is the x-axis, and since our year is 2004, that's 3 years since 2001. So where does that work on the graph? Well, 3 matches approximately 1.9% when you get to the line. So about 1.9% is the amount of music sold as full-length cassettes. Use the graph for the year you're being asked about. Where does that hit the line? And then bounce that over to the other axis to get the number. Number 2. The population of the United States is projected to be 300 million by the year 2010. Between 2010 and 2050, the population is expected to increase by about 2.5 million per year. Write an equation in slope-intercept form to find the population P in any year x between 2010 and 2050. Well, y is the total amount, and that's a variable. The total amount we're looking for is the population P. So P is y. M is the number that repeats, and the number that repeats is the population that repeatedly gains 2.5 million per year. So that's the number that occurs over and over again. So 2.5 will be M. We'll abbreviate that. That's how many millions of people. Instead of writing the actual number, we'll just write 2.5. X is the variable that works with M, and it's the repeating variable. The variable that repeats is all the years. The year X, and that will go for X. Plus, B is the number that occurs once. It's your starting number. And for this one, the starting number is 300 million. So put in all the variables and numbers in the correct spot, and that will be your equation. B. Graph the equation on the grid. To graph, we need a starting point, which is the y-intercept. The y-intercept is 300. That's 300 million. And since our y-axis is the population in millions, let's put a point at 300. Use the slope to find the next point. The slope is 2.5. We can put that over 1 so we can rise over run. But then notice, the x-axis isn't in increments of 1, it's in increments of 10. So let's change this rise over run fraction so that we can run 10. So let's put this as a fraction over 10. Since we multiplied the 1 by 10 to get 10, let's also multiply 2.5 by 10 to get 25. That's what will rise and run. So from 300, we'll rise 25 and run 10. Put another point and draw the line through those points. Sometimes you have to change your slope a little bit to fit the way the graph is drawn. Since this graph had the x-axis in increments of 10, we tweaked the fraction a little bit. C. Find the population in 2050. Well, since the x-axis is years since 2010, then 2050 would be 40 years since 2010. So we'll look at where we have 40 years. Where does it hit the line? If we match that with the y-axis, it's approximately 400, which is in millions. So really, in 2050, we're going to have about 400 million people. Look at the years since 2010, and since 2050 is 40 years since then, find out where that matches the y-axis on the line. Slope-intercept form can be as simple as substituting numbers in. Just remember to simplify things. Watch your minus signs. You can also graph with slope-intercept form. Start with the y-intercept and then rise over one with the slope to find the next point. With real-world problems, the total number, that's a variable, and that will be y. M is the repeating number, x is the repeating variable, and b is the number that occurs once, which is the number you started with. So make sure that every value in the question goes in the right place in slope-intercept form.